Velvet box hit the floor with a dull thud. My daughter's hands stayed open, fingers still curled around the satin ribbon she'd spent 20 minutes braiding. 50 guests, crystal chandeliers, a banner that read asterisk 35 years, one legacy asterisk. And my mother, without glancing at my 9-year-old, without lowering her voice, said it clear enough for the string quartet to pause. Asterisk, you've always been the family's emotional tax, Elena. Don't charge us tonight. Asterisk, my father didn't flinch. He just adjusted his cufflinks and said, asterisk, pick it up and step outside. Asterisk, I didn't argue, I didn't cry. I just watched the navy velvet slide across the polished floor, my daughter's hand-drawn card catching on a chair leg. Inside was a manila dossier. Inside that dossier was the only thing standing between their home and a sheriff's sale in 19 days. And they had just kicked it away like an expired coupon. I picked up my daughter. She pressed her face into my shoulder and didn't make a sound. I turned, walked past the roasted duck and the champagne flutes and the relatives who had watched me grow up and never once asked if I was all right. The lobby doors swung shut behind us. The night air felt clean. I buckled her in, started the car, and drove. I didn't look back. 4 days later, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. 12 calls from my mother, 8 from my father, 3 from my brother, 1 from my aunt. I let them all go to voicemail, not out of cruelty, out of clarity. I finally understood the difference between love and leverage, and I was done paying for a seat at a table that was never set for me. But let me take you back to the morning. I decided to wrap a default in paper. I stood in my office at 6:15 a.m., 3 weeks before the anniversary gala, with a roll of archival folders, a wax seal, and a thick manila binder that looked thinner than it felt. My daughter Chloe sat on the guest chair with a length of navy ribbon between her teeth, trying to braid it the way she'd seen on a weekend craft tutorial. She was 9. She believed tension could be negotiated into symmetry. The braid came out uneven. She grinned like she'd solved a puzzle. Asterisk, it's perfect. Asterisk, I told her. She'd also folded a card the night before. A crooked tree. A stick figure house. Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad, in block letters that leaned hard to the left. She tucked it under the ribbon herself. I caught my reflection in the glass window. Blazer, hair pinned back, a trust and estate attorney who reviewed 7-figure probate files without blinking. And yet my hands were damp. Some part of me, the part I still hadn't retired, believed this would finally balance the ledger. 35 years of marriage. Their daughter and granddaughter at the table. A gift that could genuinely anchor them, though they didn't know they were already sinking. I pressed the lid down. Chloe smoothed the ribbon with her thumb. Asterisk, Mom, do you think they'll smile? Asterisk, I smiled at her. Asterisk, maybe, baby. Asterisk, the paperwork wasn't the hard part. The hard part was still wanting to be chosen. Growing up in the Vance house, the hierarchy was absolute. Julian came first. I came second if there was room. My brother was 3 years older, and from day one, my parents treated him like a prototype they'd finally perfected. Debate trophies on the mantle, honor roll certificates on the fridge, birthday parties with coordinated themes. Then there was me. I was the afterthought my mother mentioned with a polite smile. She told me once, folding invoices on a Sunday evening like she was reading a weather report, asterisk, you were never the plan, Elena. I don't say it to wound you. I say it because it's true. Asterisk, I was 10. I remember the coffee mug she was holding, white, chipped rim. She never locked me out. She never raised her voice. She just had this quiet, steady way of making me feel like I was borrowing space that had already been allocated. Julian got the tournaments. I got a participation ribbon and a hug that lasted half a second. My father, Robert, loved me the way men of his generation loved their backup plans. Politely, consistently, without ever stepping into the room when I needed a witness. By the time I left for college on a merit scholarship and 2 campus jobs, I'd already learned the house rule. Julian was the exhibit. I was the archive. I didn't resent them for it. I just grew tired. At 25, I had Chloe. Her father lasted long enough to hear the word asterisk pregnant asterisk and then discovered a sudden passion for relocating overseas. My parents' reaction was a joint voicemail. Asterisk, another detour. Asterisk, my mother said. Asterisk, we can't cover childcare. Asterisk, my father added, I knew perfectly. I worked days tracking estate filings and compliance logs. Nights I studied for my bar exam. Chloe slept in a crib beside my flashcards. Some months I ate instant oats so she could have the fortified formula the pediatrician recommended. 3 years, 1 failed attempt, 1 pass. By 29, I was a licensed trust attorney. By 33, I was overseeing fiduciary portfolios worth more than my parents' combined retirement accounts. I learned to read a cross-collateral clause better than I could read my own mother's silence. But here's the thing about building yourself from zero. You get good at carrying load. Too good. I was the coworker who stayed late, the friend who answered at midnight, the daughter who still mailed anniversary cards to a woman who filed them in a drawer and never said thank you. Overfunctioning was my default. If there was a fire, I grabbed the hose, even when the people inside had handed me the matches. The invitation arrived in April. Cream card stock, gold embossed. Asterisk Robert and Diane Vance celebrate 35 years of partnership and legacy. Asterisk I stared at it for 2 days. Chloe found it on the counter and lit up. Asterisk we're going to Grandma and Grandpa's big party. Asterisk she said it the way kids talk about theme parks. Capital letters, exclamation points. Wide open belief that this time would be different. Chloe wanted grandparents. She wanted the cookies and the lap and the bedtime stories. She didn't know the math. She just knew she was missing something. I almost threw the invitation away. But I'd just come into possession of something that could change everything between us. A gift so specific, so necessary to their survival that even my mother would have to look up. I couldn't tell Chloe what it was. I couldn't explain the Lien filings or the defaulted bridge loan or the fact that their home was 20 days from being auctioned to cover unpaid commercial debts. She was 9. She knew the box had a satin ribbon, a card she drew, and something important inside. Asterisk we're going. Asterisk I told her. Asterisk and we're bringing the most important present they'll ever receive. Asterisk she hugged me so hard my ribs ached. I checked the RSVP for 2, wrote our names, dropped it in the mail before I could change my mind. Hope is a strange tax. You keep paying it even when the returns are garbage. A week before the party, my cousin Jenna called to warn me. Asterisk your Aunt Carol's been talking again. Asterisk according to the family grapevine, I was the ungrateful daughter who refused to let them see their granddaughter. I was cold, selfish, damaged. The truth was simpler. Every time I'd brought Chloe to visit, my mother treated her like a suspicious package, inspected her, found something wrong, moved on. Asterisk Chloe's hair is messy. Chloe talks too much. Chloe reminds me of you. Asterisk the last visit, she'd looked at her arranging wooden blocks on the coffee table and said, asterisk she's got your father's chin. The wrong one. Asterisk meaning the boyfriend, the other mistake. I stopped visiting, not to punish them, to protect my kid, but Aunt Carol's version played better at Bible study. Poor Diane weeping, Robert stoic and heartbroken, the congregation shaking their heads at the heartless daughter. Chloe heard fragments. One night, brushing her teeth, foam around her mouth. Asterisk Mom, will Grandma like me this time? Asterisk I wiped her chin. Asterisk Grandma's complicated, sweetheart. Asterisk but will she like the present? Asterisk she'd be crazy not to. Asterisk she nodded. She trusted me the way I used to trust my mother, completely, without auditing the books. I carried that weight all the way to the car the morning of the party. 3 weeks before the invitation, my father had called me. Unusual. Robert Vance communicated through my mother like nations use ambassadors. Direct calls happened roughly as often as solar eclipses. Asterisk Elena. Asterisk his voice was rough at the edges. Asterisk how's the market out there? Asterisk I was reviewing a vendor agreement. Asterisk the market's fine, Dad, why? Asterisk just curious, your mother watches those flipping shows. Asterisk he paused so long I checked if we disconnected. Asterisk Dad, what's a house like ours worth these days? Ballpark. Asterisk I gave him a number. He made a sound, something between acknowledgement and pain. Asterisk everything okay with the house? Asterisk fine, your mother's calling me for dinner, you take care. Asterisk he hung up. I sat there, phone warm against my ear, trying to decode it. My father didn't ask about real estate. I filed it under weird but harmless and went back to work. 2 days later, a file landed on my desk that made my hands go still. Every Tuesday, my firm pulled the weekly municipal Lien docket from the county recorder. Routine. I skimmed it between coffee and my first meeting. Most were strangers' problems. That Tuesday, one address punched me in the sternum. Asterisk 728 Oak Ridge Drive. Asterisk my parents' house. The house where Julian got matching plates and I got grocery store cake. The house where my grandmother braided my hair every morning. The only person who ever made me feel like I belonged. I read the address 3 times. Pulled the full notice of commercial cross-collateral default. There it was, printed on county letterhead. A foreclosure date counting down. A default amount that made my stomach drop. A lender I recognized, they were losing the house. Not slowly, not theoretically, 3 weeks. And whoever showed up at the county steps with the highest bid would own it. Every room, every memory, every square foot of the backyard where my grandmother planted peonies that still bloomed every May. My father's call snapped into focus. He hadn't been curious. He'd been terrified. I closed my office door, pulled the lender file, started reading. I didn't call my parents. They hadn't called me, not to ask for help, not to warn me. They'd rather lose the house than call the afterthought. I read the file twice. The numbers don't lie the way people do. 11 months earlier, they'd used their primary residence as cross-collateral for a $156,000 bridge loan to fund Julien's Import-Export LLC. The house had been paid off for years, free and clear, their only solid asset heading into retirement. They'd backed every dollar of equity. Julien's import business took on a warehouse lease. Inventory sat in customs. Tariffs doubled. Julien dissolved the LLC quietly, deleted Instagram, never repaid a cent. The bridge loan fell to my parents. Their combined monthly obligation was more than double their retirement income. They'd made 3 payments, missed 2. The county filed the cross-collateral notice in February. Sale date, April 24th. $156,000 in equity torched. 35 years of mortgage payments gone. The math was ugly and final. Where had the money gone? Not to the house, not to medical bills. The bridge loan disbursement went out in a single lump sum 11 months ago to a business account I didn't recognize. I pulled public filings. Cross-referenced the date, there it was. Asterisk Vance Global Imports LLC asterisk, my brother's company, the one he'd bragged about for 7 months before the post stopped. The one my mother called asterisk Julien's next chapter asterisk at Thanksgiving. The one nobody mentioned since. They'd bet the house on Julien, literally put up every cent of equity on the golden child's dream venture. And the dream had burned down, and they'd told me nothing. I closed the file, opened it, closed it. Then I stared at the county clerk's contact information for 10 minutes. Overresponsibility is a reflex. You see the fire, you grab the hose, even when the people inside never handed you a key. I didn't sleep. Part of me said, asterisk walk away. Asterisk they didn't ask you. They don't want you. They've spent 33 years making it clear you're the line item they'd cut first. But there was another part. The part that remembered my grandmother in the back bedroom, brushing my hair, telling me stories about the garden she planted at 19. The peonies along the fence were hers. That house wasn't just my parents'. It was hers. And she'd been the only person who ever made me feel like I had a right to exist. And Chloe. Chloe who drew crooked houses of grandparents she barely knew. Chloe who carried hope around like a lunchbox packed fresh every morning, even when it came back empty. I wasn't doing this for my mother. Not for my father. And sure as hell not for Julien. I was doing this because the house was worth saving. And because I'd never be able to explain to Chloe 15 years from now that I had the power to keep her grandparents home. And I let it go because my feelings were hurt. But I wouldn't save them on their terms. If I did this, it would be on mine. I poured coffee, pulled up the county clerk's settlement number, drafted an email. By morning, I had a plan. The transaction was clean, legal. When a borrower defaults on a cross-collateral bridge loan and files a lien, the debt instrument can be settled. County clerks do it daily. They'd rather take 60 cents on the dollar now than gamble on an auction. I'd handled these for clients dozens of times. I knew the forms, the disclosures, the timeline. I contacted settlement, identified myself as a licensed trust attorney, inquired about purchasing the defaulted junior lien at a negotiated payoff. After 2 rounds, we settled. I wired the funds from my savings. It wiped out most of what I'd put away over 6 years of promotions, bonuses, and skipped vacations. But it was my money, earned my way, spent with my eyes open. The assignment was recorded at the county recorder's office. As of 3 weeks before the party, I held the lien release. The default was mine to enforce or forgive. Their crisis sat in my briefcase. I want to be clear, I didn't do this to trap them. I did it because their house was going to be sold on county steps in 3 weeks, and neither had the means, credit, or pride to ask the one person who could stop it. I planned to give it to them free and clear, the anniversary gift of a lifetime. The manila binder sat on my desk for 3 days before I put it in the box. Inside, the recorded assignment transferring the county's position to me, a lien satisfaction I'd prepared. Once signed and recorded, it would release the claim, cancel the debt, leave them with clean title. Underneath it, the original notice of cross-collateral default. April 24th circled in red, 3 pieces of paper that told a story. Asterisk, your house was dying. Your daughter bought it back. Here's the release. Asterisk, I slid the binder into the box, checked the satisfaction one more time, unsigned. I'd sign it at the party, in front of everyone, the final flourish. April 24th, 19 days away. I closed the lid and set the box on the shelf. That evening, I sat Chloe down. Asterisk, we're bringing the most important present, sweetheart. Asterisk, she studied me with those serious brown eyes. Asterisk, more important than the watch Julian got grandpa. Asterisk, asterisk, way more. Asterisk, she retied the satin ribbon. Uneven again. She tucked her card under the bow. Asterisk, now it's perfect. Asterisk, I watched her smooth the navy velvet. This tiny person who loved people who hadn't earned it yet. And I felt the full weight of what I was about to do. I almost didn't go. Mailed the documents. Skipped the party. Let the paperwork do the talking without me and my complicated face and my 9-year-old, and all the history we carried just by walking through the door. If you've ever talked yourself out of standing up to your own family, I get it. It took me 33 years. Stay with me. What happened when my daughter handed over that box changed everything. I loaded the box into the car and drove. Julian called the week before. Asterisk, hey L. Asterisk, still used the nickname from when I was 6. Asterisk, you going to mom and dad's thing. Asterisk, asterisk, taking Chloe. Asterisk, asterisk, I'm actually working on something new. A consulting concept, more scalable. Asterisk, he said scalable like it was a magic word. Asterisk, that's great, Julian. Asterisk, asterisk, yeah. Really coming together. Mom and dad are going to be stoked. Asterisk, he didn't ask about the house. Didn't mention the bridge loan. Either he didn't know or he assumed someone else would fix it. Both tracked. 4 days before, my mother called to confirm attendance. Asterisk, you said too, you and Chloe, still accurate. Asterisk, asterisk, yes. Asterisk, asterisk, Julian's bringing a date. I'm rearranging the seating chart. Asterisk, of course. Asterisk, I'll sit wherever. Asterisk, asterisk, you always do. Asterisk, her pauses were weapons. Asterisk, I'm surprised you're coming. You've made it very clear how you feel about family gatherings. Asterisk, I bit my cheek. The Lien satisfaction sat in my briefcase 3 feet away. I was the only reason their house wasn't being sold to a stranger, and she was surprised I was coming. Asterisk, I'll be there. We're bringing something special. Asterisk, asterisk, don't make it about you, Alina. Is our day? Asterisk, asterisk, I wouldn't dream of it. Asterisk, she hung up. I sat in my car and stared through the windshield. Column A, reasons to give her the deed. Column B, reasons to shred it. Column A1, barely. Only because of a grandmother who died 6 years ago and a 9-year-old who still believed in matching plate parties. She had no idea she was inviting the holder of her own Lien to dinner. The venue was a rented banquet hall off Route 12. White tablecloths, crystal centerpieces, a string quartet in the corner, a hand-lettered sign, asterisk 35 years, Robert and Diane, asterisk 50 guests, aunts, uncles, church friends, neighbors who believed Aunt Carol's gossip. The spread was extravagant. Roasted duck, wine bottles, a 3-tier cake with fondant peonies. I did the math instinctively. $4,000 to $5,000. Money they didn't have, borrowed or charged from an account already hemorrhaging. They were celebrating 35 years inside a party they couldn't afford, in a house they were about to lose, in front of people they'd lied to. I parked around back. Chloe smoothed her dress. Asterisk ready. Asterisk, I held the box. Asterisk ready. Asterisk, she straightened the satin ribbon. Her card peeked out. I carried it. She held my hand. We walked in past the quartet. Past 33 years of curated mythology. The hall smelled like rosemary and perfume. Someone was already on their 2nd glass of champagne. Aunt Carol found us in 90 seconds. Asterisk, Alina, you actually came. Asterisk, asterisk, hi Carol. Asterisk, she looked at Chloe like a health inspector. Asterisk, aren't you getting big? Diane's going to be surprised. Asterisk, asterisk, we brought a present. Asterisk, Chloe said brightly. Asterisk, how thoughtful. Asterisk, she turned to the next table. Loud enough for me to hear. Asterisk, 35 years married and the quiet one finally shows up. Asterisk, I moved Chloe to my other side. Reflex. My parents were at the head table. Robert shaking hands thinner than I remembered. Diane arranging place cards with surgical precision. Neither looked up. I steered Chloe toward Uncle Pete. Robert's younger brother, retired engineer. The only relative who ever treated me like family. He hugged Chloe, then leaned close. Asterisk, your grandma would have been proud of you, Alina. She always was. Asterisk, I blinked twice. Asterisk, thank you, Uncle Pete. Asterisk, you okay being here? Asterisk, ask me in 2 hours. Asterisk, Chloe pointed at the cake. I let her look but kept her close. This room wasn't safe for her yet. Halfway through appetizers, I excused myself. Through the half-open kitchen door, I heard my mother's voice. Tight. Controlled. Asterisk, Julian says the investor is interested. 2 more weeks. Asterisk, Robert's voice, lower. Asterisk, Julian's been saying that since December. Asterisk, don't start, not tonight. Asterisk, Diane, the letters are. Asterisk, we are not discussing the house at our anniversary party. We'll figure it out. Julian will come through. Asterisk, Julian couldn't come through a revolving door. Silence. Then my mother, steel edge intact. Asterisk, at least he's trying. At least he didn't just disappear. Asterisk, she meant me. Robert again, quieter. Asterisk, maybe we should have. Asterisk, no, we are not asking her. We are not giving her the satisfaction. Asterisk, that word landed like a slap. Asterisk, satisfaction. Asterisk, as if saving their house would be a trophy for me, as if asking me was worse than losing everything. I stood there 30 seconds, long enough to confirm what I already knew. The house was their crisis. Julian was their fantasy. I was their last resort, the one they'd rather drown than reach for. I went back to my seat. Chloe ate a bread roll, happy as a clam. I kissed her head and set the box on the empty chair. After salad, Robert stood to toast, tapped his glass. Room quieted. Asterisk, 35 years with this woman and I'd do it all again. Asterisk, polite applause. He talked about early years, lean times, the house on Oak Ridge Drive. Family, legacy. Julian, asterisk, our son Julian, took a chance on his dream, put himself out there, already working on something new. That's the kind of man we raised. Diane and I couldn't be prouder. Asterisk, room clapped. Julian waved, rehearsed. Robert's eyes swept the room, landed on me, moved on. Asterisk, and, Alina and little Chloe are here too. Good to have you. Asterisk raised his glass. Asterisk, to the daughter who never gave us a day of worry. Asterisk, glasses clinked. I smiled because making a scene wasn't in my nature. Chloe waved. Robert didn't notice. Julian was the paragraph, I was the footnote. Even at a party I attended to save their house, my father couldn't spare a full sentence for me. The daughter who never gave them worry had given them a cross-collateral, a failed LLC, and a foreclosure notice. He didn't realize the irony. I excused myself again. Locked the restroom door, ran cold water over my wrists. The mirror showed a woman in a blazer, tired eyes, good posture, a box waiting at the table. I stared at her. I came to give them a home. I would not also give them my self-respect. The plan hadn't changed. But something had shifted. I'd walked in hoping they might meet me halfway, hoping my father might look up, hoping my mother might say hello to her granddaughter, hoping someone might acknowledge I existed as more than a line item. They hadn't, they wouldn't. Not because they were evil, because the story they'd told for 33 years was load-bearing. I was the afterthought. Julian was the investment. Changing it meant admitting the math was wrong. And neither was strong enough for that audit. Right here is where I decided I was done begging to be loved. If you're at that point with someone in your family, this next part is for you. Comment asterisk boundaries asterisk if you've had to set one. I read them all. Then let's finish this together. I dried my hands, straightened my blazer, picked up the box, time to give them the house. They cut the cake at 8:15. Phones came out. My mother held the knife like a scalpel. After plates were passed, I saw my opening. Asterisk Chloe. Asterisk I knelt. Asterisk you remember what we talked about. Asterisk she nodded, eyes huge. She'd been holding it together all night. Asterisk you're going to carry the box to Grandma and Grandpa and say what we practiced. Asterisk the happy anniversary thing exactly. Asterisk yes baby. Asterisk she slid off her chair. I handed her the box. She held it against her chest like it weighed more than physics allowed. I walked beside her. 50 pairs of eyes tracked us. Murmuring dropped. Uncle Pete set down his fork. My mother looked up. Robert turned. Julian glanced over. The room went quiet. I stopped 3 feet from the table and let Chloe walk the last steps alone. She stopped directly in front of my mother, held out the box. Satin ribbon catching the lights. Her card tucked neatly under the knot. Asterisk happy anniversary Grandma and Grandpa. Asterisk clear, practiced, proud. Asterisk we made it just for you. Asterisk the room melted. 50 people did that collective awe. Robert blinked. Something soft moved behind his eyes. He reached for it. My mother got there first. She looked at Chloe, at the box, at me. I saw the calculation. The 33-year-old story running its program. Asterisk Alina is the afterthought. Alina's gifts are obligations. Asterisk her jaw tightened. She didn't reach for it, didn't open it, didn't touch the string. The room held its breath. She looked at the box like it might bite her. Every person watching. Every neighbor. Every church friend. Silence lasted 4 seconds, felt like 40. She pushed it across the table, not gently, palm flat against navy velvet, shoved it sideways. Satin ribbon snagged on a butter knife. Chloe's card slipped out, fluttered face down next to her chair. Chloe's hands stayed out, open, empty. My mother didn't look at the card, she looked at me and said it. Asterisk you've always been the family's emotional tax, Alina. Don't charge us tonight. Asterisk loud enough for the second row to hear. Loud enough for Uncle Pete to set down his glass. 50 people heard it. Some gasped. Some didn't. If you'd been in this family long enough, you'd heard some version before. Just never this public, never this raw, never aimed at a woman standing in front of her 9-year-old daughter. Chloe looked up at me. Lower lip trembled, locked. I didn't move, didn't speak. Watched my mother's face and saw everything I'd needed to see and been too hopeful to read. The resentment that predated me, the pregnancy that derailed her plans. 33 years of projecting her own regret onto the child who dared to exist. She wasn't angry at the gift. She was angry at me for bringing it. Acceptance meant gratitude. Gratitude meant I mattered, and I wasn't allowed to matter, not in her math. The room was silent, heavy. Carol looked at her plate. Julian's date looked at Julian. Julian looked at his phone. Robert's chair scraped. He stood. For when held breath, I thought he'd correct her, thought 33 years of following her might buckle, thought he might, for once, choose me. He didn't. Asterisk pick it up and step outside. Asterisk flat, practiced, like he'd rehearsed it in the shower. A fork dropped. The pastor's wife covered her mouth. Chloe pressed her face into my hip, and I laughed, not performance, not revenge. The sound a person makes when the thing they've feared their whole life finally happens, and it's so much smaller than they imagined. 33 years wondering if I was enough. The answer delivered on a rented hall with 50 witnesses. No, I was not enough. Never going to be. And for the first time, standing there with roasted duck and my daughter's face pressed into my blazer, I was perfectly fine with that. My mother's composure cracked. She hadn't expected laughter. Asterisk what's so funny? Asterisk she snapped. I stopped, took a breath, looked at Robert, at Diane, at the box crooked on the table, ribbon half off, card on the floor. Asterisk do you want to know what's in the box? Asterisk the room leaned forward. I picked it up, straightened the ribbon, pulled out the manila binder, held it up. Asterisk 3 weeks ago I found out this house, your house, the one on Oak Ridge Drive, has a commercial cross-collateral default. Asterisk my mother's face went white. Robert sat heavily. Asterisk you used the house as collateral for a $156,000 bridge loan 11 months ago, funded Julian's LLC. Asterisk I looked at Julian, his date looked at him. 50 people looked at him, he stared at the tablecloth. Asterisk business failed, money's gone, missed 2 payments. County filed the cross-collateral notice in February. Auction scheduled April 24th. Asterisk I held up the binder. Asterisk 19 days from tonight. Asterisk no one moved. Asterisk 3 weeks ago I settled the junior lien with the county. Negotiated. Paid it off with my savings. Every dollar I've earned in 6 years of working nights, weekends, skipping vacations while you told Carol I was the daughter who abandoned you. Asterisk my mother opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I set the binder on the table. Asterisk this contains the recorded assignment of the lien to me, and a satisfaction of claim. Once I sign and record it, the house is yours, free and clear, no auction, no foreclosure, it was your anniversary gift. Asterisk I let it sit. Asterisk my 9-year-old carried it across this hall for you, and you shoved it off the table and told me not to charge you. Asterisk I left the sentence in the air. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't cry, didn't look away. Stood there with my daughter against my hip. Let 50 people do the math. Carol turned pale. The pastor's wife covered her face. Uncle Pete nodded slowly. My mother gripped the table. Asterisk Alina, you can't just. Asterisk I can. Asterisk I said quietly. Asterisk I hold the release, your house, your debt, my decision. Asterisk I slid the binder back into the box, closed it. The satisfaction stayed unsigned. Folded it into my pocket. Bent down, picked up Chloe's card. Smudged, but the house was still there. tucked it into my jacket, picked up my daughter. She wrapped her arms around my neck, didn't cry, just held on. The way kids hold on when adults fail, and the only safe thing in the room is the person carrying them. Asterisk Alina. Asterisk Robert's voice broke. Asterisk wait. Asterisk I didn't. Asterisk please. Asterisk my mother stood. Chair hit the wall. Asterisk you can't just, that's our house. Asterisk I turned at the door. 50 faces. Stunned, relieved, crying. Julian had his head in his hands. Asterisk it was your gift. Asterisk I said. Asterisk would have been signed tonight. You chose differently. Asterisk I walked out. Parking lot dark, quiet. Chloe's breath warm against my neck. Asterisk mom. Asterisk she whispered. Asterisk yeah baby. Asterisk is grandma going to be okay? Asterisk buckled her in, smoothed her hair. Asterisk grandma's going to have to figure some things out. Asterisk set the box on the passenger seat. Ribbon creased, half untied, wrecked from being pushed, started the engine, drove home, neither looked back. Calls began at 10:47 p.m. My mother's voicemail, crying but structured, still drafting the narrative. Asterisk you humiliated us. In front of the church. You had no right, I didn't mean it that way. You always twist everything. Asterisk not a sorry, just a complaint about the audience. Roberts at 6:15 a.m., anger first. Then the crack. Asterisk hell of a stunt, Alina, we were wrong, okay, we were wrong, please come back, we need to talk about the house. Asterisk 5 words. Asterisk talk about the house. Asterisk not Chloe, not me, the asset, Julian called twice. First time hung up. Second, asterisk fix this, Alina. Asterisk like I was tech support for a family he'd bankrupted. Over 5 days, 12 calls from my mother. 8 from Robert. 3 from Julian. 1 from my aunt I deleted. 3 texts from cousins. Asterisk heard what happened, you okay? Asterisk 2 neighbors reached out. Mrs. Delgado said she'd always thought I was the strong one, sorry no one said it sooner. The story they'd built for 33 years collapsed on a rented hall. Rubble everywhere. I didn't answer. Not yet, not as punishment, as preparation. They needed to sit in the quiet long enough to realize the house wasn't the problem. The silence was. I had something to offer, but this time with terms, boundaries, not ultimatums. Day 6 I called Robert, just him. Asterisk I'm not making you homeless. Never the plan, not who I am. Asterisk quiet, then asterisk what do you want? Asterisk respect. For me, for Chloe, in writing. Asterisk I drafted the documents. Clean, simple, I'd sign the satisfaction, release the lien, cancel the debt. In exchange they'd place the house in a revocable living trust. Life estate for them, Chloe as sole remainder beneficiary. Julian's name nowhere in it, no co-signing, no verbal promises, just a recorded deed, notarized trust amendment, acknowledgement letter, not punishment. Alignment. If they wanted security, they'd acknowledge who provided it. Robert agreed in 30 seconds. Math finally caught up. My mother took 2 days. When she called, her voice was smaller, no performance. Asterisk I was afraid of you, Alina, afraid you'd turn out to be everything I wasn't, and you did, and I couldn't stand it. Asterisk 33 years terrified of being outshone by the daughter she swore she never wanted, not an apology, not redemption. A woman at the edge of her own damage, finally describing what she saw. I didn't forgive her on the spot, but I heard her, hearing her was enough. We met at a notary's office on Tuesday. Fluorescent lights, scratch of pens, her hand trembled signing. Robert steady, I signed last. Clerk stamped them, recorded that afternoon. By 4 Lien released, default void. 728 Oak Ridge Drive theirs again. Clean title. No strangers in my grandmother's garden. I drove past that evening. Peonies still blooming. Heavy, pink, stubborn. Didn't stop, didn't need to. Chloe's card, framed, hung in our hallway at eye level. Kids' drawings don't belong in trash, they belong where they can be seen. I stopped waiting for my mother to call me anything but an afterthought the day I realized my worth was never hers to hand back. You don't get to define someone else's value just because they stayed in the room while you kept changing the score. This isn't about revenge. Revenge is loud, reactive, leaves you exhausted. What happened in that hall was about boundaries. Choosing yourself before you break, holding up people who refuse to lift their own weight. Realizing love you have to audition for isn't love. It's a transaction. And you get to walk away from bad deals. If you've ever been the family scapegoat, the quiet one, the one who held everything together while others took credit for your stability, this is for you. You are not the mistake. You are the correction. Walking away with your dignity intact is the most powerful justice there is. Welcome to Little Bunny. We tell quiet stories about family, betrayal, and the steady strength it takes to choose yourself. If this resonated, leave your thoughts below. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And remember, you never need permission to stop begging for a seat at a table that was never set for you.